Okay, chapter 7, part 2 here. So we talked about social networking sites, and then we were transitioning into YouTube. And I just want to ask you, and this is just something for you to think about, obviously, because we're not together and so we can't discuss, but where does YouTube belong in this discussion? What kind of social media site is it? Um, this is kind of scary. I mean, this is as of October of last year, Gangnam Style, more than 2 billion views. Baby by Justin Bieber, 1.1 billion views. I'd like to see how many views they've got now. These are the two most popular YouTube videos ever, at least as of last fall. Maybe something else has overtaken one of them or both of them. I doubt it. Um, Speaking of brownie points, which I spoke about in part one, brownie points for any students who admit to being believers. Just send me an email and let me know that you're a believer, and I will give you a brownie point. I was gonna try to keep that serious and just see if anyone would actually email me, but I laughed, so that's not gonna work. Anyways, social media and crime. Criminals use social media as well. Gangs use social media. ISIS uses social media. According to CNN, police used the Facebook page of a suspected murderer to their advantage. They kind of busted this guy because one of his Facebook friends agreed to give people access to the guy's page. And a judge ruled that this guy had no privacy because he shared this information with his friends, with his Facebook friends. So, really interesting case. I mean, in terms of just implications for privacy on social media. And you have to be careful. I mean, I know that none of you are murderers. I hope not, or gang members. But you know, you have to be careful. I mean, I've seen students who, like posting pictures of themselves on social media sites, like smoking blunts and like underage drinking, and you have to be careful with stuff like that. To be honest, I mean, I don't condone that stuff, anyways. But like, employers are looking at that stuff, and this is a fact. Employers look at Facebook pages and they will decide to not hire people on that basis. This has happened. You can Google it right now if you want, and you'll find there are plenty of examples of people who have lost out on jobs because of stuff that has been on their Facebook page. So you kind of have to be careful about the kinds of things that you post to social media sites. The new media environment and advertising. So think about traditionally how this works with advertising. So advertisements go to the highest circulating newspapers or the highest rated TV shows or the highest circulating magazines or whatever. But for most of the modern era, advertisers actually had no idea how much of an impact their ads were having. They just put the advertisement in the newspaper and then they don't really know for sure what the impact is. People may have watched the show, but there was no way to know if people actually watched the ad or if they paid attention to the ad, or in the newspaper if they just paged through, if they actually looked at the advertisement. But now in the internet, everything has changed. Companies can now see exactly how many people, for example, click on a banner, right, or go to a link or whatever, a hyperlink or whatever. And we're in this era of big data now, where you have these massive data sets that are so large that you can't use traditional statistical analytic techniques to make sense of them, right? So you have to have these big data firms that make sense of this stuff for you. And one of the interesting things is the impact of ads seems to be low, at least in terms of some of the metrics and how we're viewing the impact of ads. It may be, though, that in the long term, in the long run, ads have an impact. It's hard to measure, though, right? you kind of go through these stages where you recognize a brand or a product, and so you know about it, you have knowledge, and then it affects your attitude, and then maybe down the road you buy it, right? So it's hard, it's kind of difficult to measure that. But the big companies advertise. Nobody advertises more than McDonald's, right? Even though they are, insanely successful. So, but anyways, the point of this was the internet. I mean, it makes things a lot easier for companies, because they can see exactly how, what kind of impact, at least in terms of exposure to the ads, right? They can see that now on the internet. Think about some of the implications of all of this audience generated content, all these producers, right? These people that are these are users of the internet, but they're producing content. These are members of the audience, but they're producing content. Think about that. And at one level, social media conversations have allowed people to feel as though they're part of a unique community. So now you have the debate, right, going on right now about, in the aftermath of the tragedy in Charleston, right, about the Confederate flag. And people are saying that the all over the country, right? People are saying we have to get rid of the Confederate flag, and they've formed kind of a community. And you have other people saying, no, you misunderstand the Confederate flag. And those people, you can think of them as being part of a community as well. And this is an interesting thing that I often think about. Does this phenomenon cause people to overestimate their public support and presence? Because you're online and you're talking with people and you're communicating, and you put something up and it gets thousands of likes, and you're thinking, oh wow, everybody's on my side, right? But in reality, it's a very skewed. That's a very skewed picture. These are just questions. How do you trust audience-generated content? Remember, with audience-generated content, any of the things that we're talking about, whether it's Facebook or Wikipedia or whatever, there aren't the standards of professionalism and accuracy that we have with traditional journalism, for instance. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very critical of the press system, and there are numerous problems, but at least there's a basic standard, for accuracy at the very least. And there are other problems, right, beyond accuracy, but at the very least, for the most part, they're not just making stuff up, right? So, but in online and with all this audience-generated content, how can you be so sure? And there are all these hoaxes. My God, I mean, every week I must get some kind of a hoax, and people are, believing a lot of the stuff that's put out online, all these websites, and that's the first thing as I look when I see something. I look at the website that it came from, and if it doesn't seem credible, and then I look at the story or whatever. But there's a ton of hoaxes out there. But here are some questions, ethical questions for you to think about also. Could somebody write a book based on online discussions without getting permission from everyone who contributed to the discussions? That's something for you to think about. Should people be compensated in some way, the people who were posting to the discussion? What are the rules for photographs and videos in the age of the internet? Somebody puts a photo up on Facebook and you're friends with them, or not, or if they're just kind of public and you see it, can you use the photo in an advertisement, or can you send it to somebody? Can you email it to somebody? I mean, what are the implications? What kind of ethical guidelines should there be? Is it okay to set up a fake Twitter account and pretend that you're somebody else, even if it's just joking? What do you think about that from an ethical standpoint? Should we consider our social media and other internet posts private, or are they public? I think whatever you think about that from an ethical standpoint, just by default, you should consider everything public. Just by default, just to protect yourself, because that's the reality now. What about information we provide about ourselves online, right? And again, this is kind of related, but I would just assume, to be safe, that whatever you put out online is being seen by somebody that you might not want to see it. So you always have to be careful about anything that you post online. Is it ethical for companies to access and share info about you that you posted to Facebook and other sites? That happens. Do you think it's ethical? Um, More kind of discussion questions. Really, we're not discussing, but these are things for you to think about. Do you think social media and other new media and technology tools are making us less rather than more social? Some people think so, because instead of you know going and talking to somebody, what you're doing is you send them a text, or you Facebook them, or you direct message them, or something, or you WhatsApp them. But whereas in the past you would have went and talked to them, or at least you would have picked up the phone and called them. So that's just something to think about. Are social media making us dumber? Some people think that in the internet age and in the information age, we're actually becoming dumber. There's a book written called The Dumbest Generation by Mark Bauerlein, and he says that we are dumber today about important things like politics and history, substantive knowledge, science, than we've been at any point in time in the modern era. So that's kind of, it's interesting. It's tragic. It's counterintuitive, because you would think with all the information that we'd be smarter, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Not just with his book, but there's a lot of evidence. If you look at the opinion, the polling data, they do these political knowledge quizzes and stuff like that, history quizzes, and so what's happening? Are we becoming lazy because we can get stuff online? Are we becoming super specialized? So like we're just ignoring stuff. Like I'm sports guy. Like all I'm gonna do is read about sports and follow the sites online that are about sports, or my favorite team, or my favorite movies, or whatever entertainment issues. But then we're just kind of ignoring some of the more substantive topic areas like politics, history, science, knowledge making. Maybe our brains are being rewired. I mentioned that in an earlier lecture as well, I think. But maybe we're just not able to concentrate like we used to. I don't know. Some people have suggested that the rise in attention deficit disorder is related to this new environment, with all the screens, the TVs and the computers, and we're just not able to focus like people did in the past. So these are things for you to think about. That's part 2 of chapter 7. So it's a pretty short lesson. Keep up with your readings. Keep up with watching these videos, of course. Email me if you have any questions. Let me know. Send me an email if you want to meet online, if you want to meet on Skype to chat about anything. Make sure that the syllabus is your best friend, so you know when stuff is due. You have brief paper number 2. Let me actually just look right now so that we can remind ourselves. So brief paper number 2 is due via email. Email it to me at mlmasry@una.edu, please. Don't put it on Canvas. That is due on July 2nd. July 2nd, which is a Thursday. So you still have a little bit of time. But it's never a bad idea to start, start sooner than later. Brief paper number 2 is an entertainment media reflection. I guess I'll talk about that now. All I want you to do is think about some issue related to the role of entertainment media in American culture and society. I don't care if it's video games, music, movies, whatever, and then just do research on some aspect of the area. You might be interested in, you have some question that you want to answer, right? But it's got to be based on some research. I don't want you to send me a page and a half or 2 pages of your opinion on something. I want this to be substantial. It's got to be based on some background research. Like you have to cite some scholars, some studies. You got to do some reading here. So you might be interested in answering the question, do video games cause people to be violent? You might be interested in the question of, are music videos exploiting women? Are certain genres doing it more than other musical genres? Whatever. Are movies more sexually explicit or more violent today than they were back 30 or 40 years ago? And what are the implications? So just whatever you're interested in. Explore the area, explore the topic, try to answer some question, turn that in on July 2nd. Let me know if you have any questions for me regarding that. But just, I just want to emphasize, this has to be you. Let me just put a rule here. Let's say you have to cite, I want you to cite at least 3 sources for this paper, for the entertainment media reflection paper, and at least 2 of them have to be sort of scholarly sources. So maybe 1 could be like a news, popular source, but then 2 have to be scholarly. So go to your scholar.google.com or go to the database. Let me just show you while I have your attention. So if we go to UNA and we go to library and we go down to where's the it's late, it's 3:51 in the morning, and so I'm forgetting databases. I'm looking for databases. Resources by title. Okay, it used to say, I think they just changed this, but yeah, so go to resources by title and then click on the C, the letter C, and go down communication and mass media complete. That's your friend. And this will give you, you log in. You obviously use this from off campus as long as you're currently registered. And there you go. Come down here, click on scholarly, peer reviewed, and then you can do a search for whatever. Like, let's do video games and violence. Search, and you'll get a bunch of stuff. You'll get a bunch of hits. So that's a scholarly article about this issue. Here's another one. 107 hits that I got on that. So anyways, what I'm saying for this assignment, at least 3 sources. 2 of them should be scholarly. I don't want you to just give me your opinion. Let me know if you have questions. That's it. Let's see if I can figure out how to close this all out.